Look at the person nearest to you right now. A stranger on the street. Someone in the next room. Someone on the other side of the world you will never meet. Science has proven that you and every one of those strangers share the same mother. Not a vague shared ancestry buried somewhere in the fog of evolution. Not a symbolic connection. Not a metaphor. A specific woman. One woman who lived in Africa between 150,000 and 200,000 years ago. And from her, through an unbroken chain of mothers and daughters that never once broke, every human being alive on this planet today is directly descended. Her name, given to her by scientists in 1987, is Mitochondrial Eve. And before I tell you how we found her, I need to tell you something that even most scientists find genuinely strange, because it changes everything about how you understand this story. There is also a Y-chromosomal Adam. Just as every maternal line on Earth traces back to one woman, every paternal line traces back to one man. And here's the part that stops people cold. Adam and Eve did not live at the same time. Y-chromosomal Adam lived somewhere between 200,000 and 340,000 years ago. Mitochondrial Eve lived between 150,000 and 200,000 years ago. The gap between them is at least 50,000 years, possibly over 100,000. They never met. They could not have met. They lived in completely different eras of human prehistory, separated by time spans longer than all of recorded history combined. And yet every human being alive today descends from both of them, through completely separate unbroken lines, one maternal, one paternal, running through thousands of generations of people who had no idea they were part of the same impossible chain. The theological name pairing was a coincidence of language. The scientific reality is far stranger than any garden. Now back to Eve, and how we actually found her. She was not the only woman alive. This is the most common misunderstanding about her. When she lived, there were thousands of other women alive at the same time. Other mothers, other lineages, other lives, just as full and just as real as hers. But she is the only one whose unbroken line of daughters survived to the present day. Every other woman alive at the same time either had no daughters or had daughters whose own daughters eventually had no daughters. And those lineages died out, one by one, quietly, without ceremony, until every maternal line from that period was gone, except hers. Mitochondrial Eve is not the mother of the first humans. She is the mother of the last surviving maternal line. That distinction matters enormously, and it makes the story stranger and more interesting than most people realize. In 1987, a team of scientists at the University of California, Berkeley, Rebecca Cann, Mark Stoneking, and Alan Wilson, published a paper in the journal Nature. They had spent years collecting mitochondrial DNA samples from 147 women of diverse ethnic backgrounds from around the world: African, European, Asian, Australian, Pacific Islander. Every major human population represented. Mitochondrial DNA is the key to understanding how this works. Unlike the DNA in your chromosomes, which is a mix of both your parents and reshuffles with every generation, mitochondrial DNA is inherited exclusively from your mother. Your mother gave it to you. Her mother gave it to her. Her mother's mother gave it to her. All the way back, unchanged, generation after generation, an unbroken thread running backward through time through an unbroken line of women. Because it does not mix or reshuffle, scientists can use it like a timestamp. The more similar two people's mitochondrial DNA, the more recently they shared a common maternal ancestor. The more different, the further back you have to go to find the branch point. When Cann, Stoneking, and Wilson compared all 147 samples, they found something nobody had fully expected. Every single sample, from every corner of the earth, traced back to a single common source: one woman. In Africa. The paper was published in January 1987. By that summer, it was on the cover of Newsweek magazine. The story exploded into public consciousness in a way that almost no scientific paper ever does. Talk shows, newspaper editorials, religious debates, philosophers weighing in. Some people found it beautiful. The idea of a single shared origin, a universal mother connecting every human being alive, felt like scientific proof of something people had always sensed was true. Others found it deeply uncomfortable, because if every living human descended from one African woman, then the stories many cultures had told about separate origins, about some groups being fundamentally different from or older than others, were not just morally wrong. They were genetically, provably, Demonstrably wrong. The science did not care about either reaction, because science does not care about comfort. It cares about what is true. And what is true, confirmed now by decades of genetic research from institutions on every continent, is this. In 2010, Rice University ran the most statistically robust examination ever conducted of the genetic data. They compared 10 completely different human genetic models, each using different assumptions about how humans migrated and expanded across the Earth. The date kept coming back to around 200,000 years ago. Confirmed. In 2019, geneticist Vanessa Hayes from the Garvan Institute of Medical Research went further. Using DNA from over 1,200 modern indigenous Africans, she identified not just when mitochondrial Eve lived, but roughly where. A region in southern Africa, what is now the border area of Namibia and Botswana, that was at the time a vast, lush wetland paradise. Now largely swallowed by the Kalahari Desert, she had a home. She had a place. She had children who grew up watching the same wetland, learning the same sky. And those children had children, and those children had children, and somewhere in that unbroken chain, the world you know today began. She was a real woman who woke up in the mornings and felt the sun and gathered food and raised children and did not know, could not possibly know, that 200,000 years later, every human being on Earth would carry her genetic signature. Think about what that actually means. Every single human alive today, all 8 billion of us, carries her DNA inside every cell in their body. Not a copy, not a distant echo. The actual molecular signature of one woman who lived in Africa 200,000 years ago, preserved inside you, right now, as you watch this. Scientists can read it. They can trace it. They can follow it backward through time and watch it converge, one line after another, until there is only one left. And that one line leads back to her. Now here's where most people stop, and where they should not. Because the fact that we all descended from one woman is not evidence of human unity in the feel-good sense. It is evidence of how close we came to not existing at all. Population geneticists estimate that at certain points in human prehistory, our total population dropped to as few as 10,000 individuals. Some estimates go lower, perhaps as few as 1,000 breeding pairs. Survivors of a catastrophic bottleneck, possibly caused by the eruption of the Toba supervolcano approximately 74,000 years ago, which threw so much ash and sulfur into the atmosphere that global temperatures dropped by up to 15 degrees for years, destroying food sources across the entire planet, or by the prolonged African megadroughts that geneticists have found evidence of around that same period, droughts that lasted for thousands of years and split the surviving human population into small, isolated groups, each one barely holding on. Humanity almost vanished without realizing it was happening. People lived their daily lives while the species quietly approached collapse. Survival was not heroic or dramatic. It was gradual, fragile, and uneven. We were nearly gone. The reason Mitochondrial Eve's line is the only one that survived is not because she was special. It is because everyone else ran out of luck. Other women started unbroken lines that nearly made it, but the ice ages and the droughts and the predators and the diseases and the 1,000 other things that tried to end us kept reducing the field. And the smaller a population gets, the more fragile each individual line becomes. The fact that her line made it is not a testament to her superiority. It is a testament to how improbable all of this was. Think about that chain for a moment. At any point in those 200,000 years, a drought could have hit one village 6 months earlier and ended the whole line. A predator could have found one camp on one night. A disease could have taken one child before she had children of her own. Here is where the Faultline theory question lives. What does this actually mean? There is a comfortable version of this story. We are all one family, so be kind to each other. That is true, but it is the most surface reading of what this data is telling us. The deeper reading is this. Every story ever told about racial difference is wrong at the genomic level. Not morally wrong, though it is that too. Genetically, provably, demonstrably wrong. What we call racial differences are surface adaptations, skin pigmentation, facial structure, hair texture, all of which emerged in the last 50,000 to 70,000 years as humans migrated out of Africa and adapted to different climates and environments. They are recent. They are shallow. They are the outermost layer of a 200,000-year-old family. Beneath those 50,000 years of surface variation, one woman, one unbroken line, one family that separated, spread, adapted, and built every civilization on Earth, spoke every language ever spoken, fought every war ever fought, wrote every book, composed every piece of music, and is now arguing with each other on the internet about which group is fundamentally different from which other group. None of them are. The data is unambiguous. Here is something worth sitting with. You have never met the vast majority of your own family. 8 billion strangers on this planet are your relatives, descended from the same woman, carrying the same molecular signature in every cell. It was an improbable chain of survival stretching across 200,000 years, every link of which had to hold, and somehow did. Every human alive today is the product of that chain. Every single one of your ancestors managed to survive long enough to have a child. In every generation, for 200,000 years, through ice ages and eruptions and plagues and everything else that tried to end them. That chain never broke, not once. And that chain traces back through an unbroken line of mothers to one woman, sitting somewhere in southern Africa under a sky full of stars, entirely unaware that she had already changed everything. She was not trying to be the mother of the world. She was not heroic. She did not know. She just lived. And tonight, somewhere near you, another person is going to fall asleep without knowing that this is where they came from. But now you do. And somehow, that was enough.